We are live. Good evening, everybody. Joel Norwood here. On the other end of the line,
Hi, everybody. Aaron Miller. Welcome back.
here we are again. The third episode of the Joel and Aaron Show. Weekly, of course. Except, what was it, about 4 weeks ago since we did the last one? Seems like
Yeah,
it's been a while.
it's weekly.
All right. All right.
Week,
Weekly and
week,
I, I,
weekly
ca-
coming together.
I call that Santa Claus time because, Santa Claus operates in a time-space continuum. I
Don't we all?
believe.
I think we all operate in the time-space continuum. You might
Yes.
say this is weekly put together.
Yes. I agree. We thank you for tuning in right now. We enjoy having everybody here, and
Absolutely.
now it's an exciting day because we'll share that with you in a moment. But so today's going to be more of a get back into the saddle sort of podcast here, if you will, a little show for the Joel and Aaron Show, episode 3. We'll be talking a couple items on the docket, but mostly it'll just be us chatting around, and you guys are along for the ride. Feel free to comment with us here and join in on the conversation as we go along. As you'll notice,
General.
yes. Well, first of all, Aaron, I think this is the big question. Did you do any Black Friday shopping?
I did not. I did some Black Friday deer hunting.
Hey, you've had a busy year for deer hunting, my friend.
I have. We'll get to that. But we got out of school on Tuesday, so we were out. We didn't have school Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we had 5 days off, and in those 5 days, I think I went hunting seven times. No, maybe 8 times. Like I think I went morning and evening every day except Thanksgiving Day proper. So that's me. How about you? Did you do any Black Friday shopping?
I did a little bit. I want to stop on this moment here and say proud husband moment because last week Katie on Black Friday did not go Black Friday shopping, but instead went Black Friday hunting. Just like you. Now this is her first year hunting. Got her a crossbow a couple years ago, and the stars aligned. She was able to have every day off last week, and she really put it to good use out there. Didn't get a deer, but I think there's lessons to be learned from not getting a deer. What do you think, Aaron?
Oh, absolutely, man. I learn something every time I go out. Every time I'm in the woods, I learn something
about yourself, nature. What are you learning about out there?
It just depends. This past Sunday, I was out and it was foggy, and it was a little bit drizzly. So this is the most recent example of like big time learning experiences in the woods. So it was drizzly. It was not nice weather at all. I'm sitting down on a property that I've got the ability to hunt. Very, very generous people. Very good friends of mine live down south of Chillicothe. They let me hunt down there, and I was down there. I've been down there a half dozen times. But they've got a pond, and there's a bank, like a kind of a levee, I guess, that goes around it. And for whatever reason, those deer just love running that levee. It's kind of a ridge, got a nice little path around it there. But the deer are up on that, and my back's to it. So I'm looking down into this bottom, and I can see for 100 yards down there. So I should be able to see deer coming up out of the bottom. Well, these two monster does, probably 200 pounds, come in behind me, and they were 10 yards before I saw them. I mean, they were there just that fast. So I've got these deer coming in behind me. I've got my bow on my left hand side hanging, so I've got to reach back like this, get the bow off the hook. So it's in my hand like this, and the weight's up here. So it's torquing on my wrist pretty good, but I've got it held like that. Finally end up with these deer off to my right side. So that is one feather in the cap of the crossbow, as you can shoot it. You know, it's ambidextrous, so you can shoot it, you know, right hand, left hand, you know, whatever way you need to.
All the dexterous.
Yeah, omnidextrous, omni-handed. But these deer, man, they're 15 yards broadside. I mean, you think perfect shot. The only way it would have been a more perfect shot would have been if they were on my left side. And I mean, the kind of shot that you're just like, you know, it's in the bag. You know, I'm cooking backstraps at this point. I'm like, oh, this ball game, let's go. I'm like, I'm gonna be back in the truck. I'm gonna be warming up here in 10 minutes. So I get my bow up. I get my face down, get my cheek weld, and I can't see anything. It's like this. Like I can't see anything.
Well, your hand would have been covering it if that's what it is.
Yeah. To those of you listening terrestrially and not tuning in here live, that's what we did. I could not see anything. So in this in my haste to get the bow up, my thought process was not getting busted by these deer, because these are big does. These are old does. I had my scope cap down because it was raining and I didn't want to get water on my scope lens. Forgot to flip my scope cap up, and so I'm like shaking because I've got to reach up with my left hand to flip the scope cap up. Well, my left hand, I've just been holding a crossbow like this for 5 minutes while I got a deer staring at me. So I'm reaching up and I'm like, feel like the Waco Kid from Blazing Saddles. Like I shoot with this hand. So I get the scope cap up. Just as I flip the cap up, man, those deer, they bust me. They turn, take off. So anyhow, back to our original thing with that lesson learned. You know, be cognizant. You know, it's so easy, and that's something that you can you can relate to your daily life too. It's so easy to get tunnel vision and think, gee, that is the goal. You gotta take care of the fundamentals. You gotta take care of the foundational stuff too. You can't put meat in the freezer if you can't see your crosshairs, folks. So
man,
put that away for a rainy day. Welcome to my TED Talk.
Wow. Speaking of TED Talks, I was watching one today by Coach John Wooden, which an amazing character, amazing man, kind of one of those larger than life figures. You know, one of those people that it's hard to believe actually existed, let alone, I don't know, what was awesome and successful. So I encourage anybody to go look at some John Wooden stuff. We won't talk about it too much here, but a great metaphor there by Mr. Aaron Miller, both in its metaphor area and non-metaphor area. So now you've gotten 5 deer so far. Is that right, Aaron?
I have the statewide bag limit this year, 6 deer. So we've got a farm up in Fairfield County that I hunt at. Shot doe back-to-back opening weekend and the second weekend. I was fortunate enough, great people in the community that I teach in. I was fortunate enough, I've got a student helper in one of my classes. My kids were working on some projects, and I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, man, I'm one more deer up in Fairfield County and I'm done. And he said, well, let me talk to my dad. We'll see if you can hunt down at our place. And they hooked me up with a spot. I think that was November 8th. I think November 8th or November 10th, somewhere along those lines. Got my first deer outside of Fairfield County then, which was sweet because, you know, the nice, good sized button buck, a lot of meat on that deer, smoked him. I tell you what, things you learn in the woods, shot placement is cat's meow. So I got that deer. 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then I shot a small doe, yearling doe on Sunday, and then I shot another yearling button buck tonight. So of those 5 deer, all excuse me, all 5 of those deer put together probably have gone 80 yards total.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they were all. Whoa, what just happened? I thought you were going to say they're all 80 pounds total, but
No,
whatever.
No. That deer. Well, we'll talk about the button buck I shot today later on. I think that's. I don't want to. I feel like that's a later on tonight thing. So if you're tuning in just to hear that, stick around.
I think we should also mention thank you, Nick Poling, for tuning in and subscribing to the Joel and Aaron Show.
Poling. Good guy, by the way. Good guy, Nick Poling.
Great guy.
Yeah, we go way back. Nick and I. Nick is a friend of mine from Amanda. Go way back. So yes, Nick, good on you. Thanks for raise our collective coffee mugs on high to Nick Poling. Thank you for coming aboard, man.
Before we proceed anymore, I think we need to address something you just said, which was good on you, which sounded very Australian. And I've got a joke for you.
I do like jokes.
So this guy goes into the hospital, okay? He's wheeled into the hospital. And he's wheeled into somebody beside him. Doesn't look too good. He doesn't look over there. It doesn't look very good at all. And so he asked the nurse and said, Is he going to die? And the nurse says, Oh no, mate, he's gone yesterday.
Is he going to die?
He's gone yesterday.
Probably one of my 3 favorite accents.
Oh, I really like the fact that if you say razor blades or if you say rise up lights, it's razor blades in Australian. Rise up lights.
Would it be? I think rise up lides. Rise up lides.
If you want to get technical about it.
I do. I am fascinated with
it. All right.
I'd like to go there and stay forever.
Oh, Australia or just this just this topic?
Oh, Australia. Definitely.
Oh,
I think, yeah. Australian, Irish, Scottish. 3 favorite dialects.
This isn't a. I don't know what this means, but I'm only really familiar with Caucasian dialects. Is it because I don't know? I don't know.
Anyhow,
is it like elsewhere in the world? Are people not familiar? Are they familiar with like other dialects that we just aren't familiar with?
Go ahead and open that can of worms. Yeah.
and shut it and move it away.
Yeah, I would say, it's what you're around. I think, in Western culture, we're familiar with Western culture.
Well said and enough said, I think.
I agree, Joel. I'm okay with putting the cap back on that can of worms.
So we were talking about deer.
We were talking about TED Talks. And
yes, John Wooden, good one.
You had an interesting deer hunting TED Talk experience that you shared with me, which I found fascinating. Why don't you unwrap that for our guests?
Well, it relates to things that kind of been happening around here in multiple ways, but I think it's pretty fascinating. And I had no idea about it till I watched this little thing. So It deals with these University of Michigan researchers, which, hey, they can't play football, but they can do some research. So there you go. Go Buckeyes. But
Go Buckeyes!
woo! Now, so was looking up this thing, and I'm also a big fanatic about Great Lakes, which we're not really doing a hobby. Well, the whole thing's pretty much a hobby section right now, but
they're better than the Good Lakes.
Some would say should be named the best lakes, but we won't go there. That's an ongoing.
I would count myself among those individuals.
Right. Anyways, so they were doing research into glacial activity and the lakes, and there's a lot of sort of interpolation about what might have happened and things like that, because research, we've got stones to pull information from, and I think people look at stones, and then you look at like all the things that they've sort of figured out from stones, and you go, well, we have rocks that have grooves in them, but how do we draw conclusions from all these things? And so if you go further down the pipeline, though, there's some interesting, I guess, meteor conclusions that could be not meteor as things that fall from the sky, but like there's meat on the bones to these conclusions here.
Meteor. Okay.
Yes. So geologists say that the Great Lakes were formed by the large glaciers that were down here during the Ice Age, and as they receded, they pretty much left these giant holes in the ground that filled with water. Now, these giant holes in the ground haven't always been filled with as much water as they do right now. In fact, There have been some dry points in history, and the way they explained it was just, like this, super simple, and it makes sense. All right, when a pond goes down, you find some things that you didn't know were there before because they're covered by water. Well,
my friend Grant used to talk about that. He worked at a lake, and the water levels would go down in the winter, and he'd find fishing lures, he'd find all this cool stuff that wasn't visible when the water level is high. So that's a good simple explanation. Makes sense.
And this is exactly what's been happening, but on more of a longer time period and a more of a archaeological scale, I guess you could say. So in Lake Ontario, which I'm not as familiar with as some of the other lakes, but Lake Ontario, there's kind of an underwater plateau that goes out. So if the water was a lot lower, and you could just drain the lakes, which there's a good TV show about that. But if you could drain the lakes and put a lot less water in there'd be a huge swath of land underneath there, and have some really interesting, things like waterfalls, some interesting caves, and all kinds of good stuff that you just would never know about unless you could see it as it was dried out. So the researchers kind of looked into this, and they thought, as they were excavating other areas on dry land, they said, okay, we can't find any caribou bones from this certain time period. We've got caribou findings from beforehand. We got caribou findings from afterwards, but we can't find anything during the middle. And so then they kind of, took a shot in the dark and said, well, this time in the middle you're talking about was also a notably dry period, according to some other, research that had been inferred. And so they said, what if the water had been lowered to a point during this dry period that the caribou hunting took place closer to the shore? Because caribou are super interesting animals. They travel in lines, and they have very specific migration patterns, and hunters in the olden days followed those things in the fall and in the spring. And so they said, okay, so we need to be looking for things underwater on this plateau, which would have been above water at this time, closer to the shore at that time.
The caribou would have been thirsty.
I don't know. I don't know if that was just the line they would follow, or they swam across. Anyways, the Great Lakes used to be a lot smaller and all those good things. So they go under there.
Good lakes.
Yeah, they go. Well, they were at that time the pretty okay lakes, right? Yeah, the Great Ponds.
Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, I'm trying to say how this next part. So they go under there with their super awesome, cool, robotics technology, and they find these old hunting blinds. And I'm like, hunting blinds? What are they, like Cabela's? But they're like these sets of like 5 rocks set up in a V and like big boulders, really. So 5 big boulders set up in a V that hunters would hide behind along these trails of caribou.
Right.
And like the families would jump out, they would kill, and then they would pretty much also use that area as camping, from what I understand. I'm sorry if you're watching this, University of Michigan researchers, and I'm getting it all wrong, but hey, my bad. But super interesting stuff. And like, it's not just like, oh, these kind of look like a V. They're like Stonehenge
Right.
sort of things.
Very geometric.
Very, and multiple ones. And they could even tell which ones were used in the fall and which ones were used in the spring, because they could tell by the fall ones. There was let me get this right. The fall ones, there were fewer of, and they were dispersed differently. And the area around it had less like artifacts and I guess examples of people living there and things like that. Whereas the spring ones, I think it showed they had like less provisions or something, and they were more people hunting because they needed more food in the spring, right, after a long winter.
Yeah, just like a bear coming out of hibernation, they eat a lot. And in the spring too, you got to think you've got caribou calves on the ground. So they're so there's going to be more. These aren't your modern day shotgun season hunters. These are people looking for sustenance. So yeah, that makes sense.
It's pretty interesting. It came up as a story that said it was like deer hunting under Lake Michigan, and I was like, what? I mean Lake Ontario. I was like, what? There's deer hunting going on under, like, I'm just imagining Aaron Miller out there with a scuba tank finding the little ones, and bam. So little scuba. Oh, beautiful. That was nicely done. But I just thought that was super interesting. I love archaeological things. Maybe this is a archaeological trending podcast for the common man, but
that would be
for the working man.
That would be a good thing. The layperson's archaeological podcast.
Right. We don't need to know all the science and all the methodology.
We don't need science.
Just tell me the results.
Give it to me
straight.
I can understand.
All right. Well, there you go. I thought that was super interesting.
I agree. That is.
It makes you wonder, like, what other interesting things are laying under your nose just because we don't think of the situations about those times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I always think, and this is something that you might find. I know you. This is something you might not have thought about, but I think you'll think it's cool. Someone in your family.
All right.
Someone in your family has eaten a mammoth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was at first, when you said thinking, your family, of course I had in mind like my close family.
Right.
And then you said the mammoth, and it threw me off.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it messed up my thinking there. But you're correct.
Yeah. But probably correct. I mean, I'm sure some people. No, I'm gonna say yeah, probably yeah. I mean, I wasn't around 10,000 BC, but I'm gonna say probably yeah. Odds are very good.
Nearer term, several people in your family actually came over here on a boat. I mean, they were on a boat for several months.
Yeah.
Most probably.
Like Deadliest Catch without the crabs.
Yes.
That's a song called I'm on a Boat. But yeah.
I'm on a boat. Okay.
To break that down for you, going back further, isn't it great that we have trees on this planet? Because without trees, none of us would be here.
I'm not sure how that relates to this conversation, but I agree. I love trees.
Those boats that people came over here with, the first European to set foot in the Americas. What was his name? Oh, Leif Erikson. Yeah, he came over.
What?
On
What? Yeah, you're a Viking man. A little bit further north.
Yeah.
And Christopher Columbus never set foot in modern day America.
I think Columbus. I don't
know. I guess okay. At first he didn't. He landed in Haiti. All right. Santa Maria was in Haiti. The crash in Haiti.
Okay, I was gonna say. I thought Santa Maria was the boat.
It was the boat. And it foundered in off the coast of Haiti, and they think they found the remains of it. Look it up, man. It's pretty awesome. We got all your underwater archaeological
right here, all in one place for you, folks. Welcome to the Joe and Aaron underwater layperson's scientific podcast.
Yes, there's probably people out there watching this or gonna watch it down the road, and they'll be like, man, I hate my life or something like that. But
I want to put a pin in that though.
Let's come back to it.
Well, no.
I am so glad you said put a pin in it, because I had a discussion with somebody. I said, all right, let's put a pin in this conversation. And they laughed at me for saying put a pin in it. They're like, what, did you just make that up? I said, no, it's a well-known saying.
Yeah, I think. I mean, maybe lay it on the table or postpone it definitely.
Yes, a little parlay pro.
Yeah.
Anyways,
where I was going, I had a kid.
Yeah. You had a kid?
No, I did. No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh.
I won't go there. Anyhow, he was talking about the Noah's Ark replica down at the Creation Museum,
which I would like to go see.
Been there
because of the sheer size of it. Was it cool?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, I feel like I'm interrupting. Continue.
It was cool. I don't know.
Continue.
I don't know what I really have to say about that, but they said I used to be fascinated with that, because there are people that think they found the remains of Noah's Ark up in the mountains overseas, which I think's neat.
There are some really cool photos of those findings, because they like one of them is kind of like almost a, I don't know, what would you say, like a petrified wood sort of, kind of remains of it that you wouldn't really be able to see except for like a satellite picture or something like that, or
right.
So it's an interesting mind game. I'm sorry.
Speaking of satellite pictures and really old stuff, they've been having a real dry year over in England right now, and
that's awesome. I've seen this.
Yeah. So they are finding like ruins, like ancient ruins, are showing up on satellite imagery right now because it's so dry. So on the one hand, California is burning to the ground because it's so dry, and that sucks. But we're also finding some really old stuff because it's so dry, and that's cool. But I would prefer. I don't know. No, absolutely.
I don't know what I would prefer here as well.
I definitely prefer California to not be burning down. This thing, yeah. How to speak Italian? Mamma mia!
No, yeah, very sad in California, but the drought in England, super interesting, because they're like these like ginormous half-mile wide circles of stones or ruins of some sort that no one knew of beforehand. They're just under some farmer's field somewhere,
and they're not burning to the ground because they're covered in managed woods.
You know what I find interesting? Like environmentalists are some environmentalists one side of the environmentalist conversation is vehemently against, managing woods and forests. And there are some interesting photos out there between like privately owned and managed land versus that of like national forests, and it's quite clear which one is more of a fire hazard. And,
well, that's two Noah's Ark points in the duration of this podcast. We've got dominion over nature. Regardless of what your religious, what your interpretation of Exodus is, it says in Exodus that you've got dominion over animals, and it's a double-edged sword, man. I mean, you've got to be in charge of them. Temple Grandin said it about beef cattle. Beef cattle want to survive in the wild. Big dumb animals that are very not good, some might say bad, at defending themselves. You want to have that in the wild. You've gotta have responsibility for these things that you're responsible for.
No, yeah, God has charged us, and that's what I believe. God has charged us with the care of this world that He's miraculously created for us, and placed us inside.
And regardless of your religious perspectives on that, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're right. I mean, we've all got our own. With that, we've all got our own interpretations of that. But regardless, take the religious stuff aside from that. I mean, we've got to maintain our planet. We're borrowing this from the future. We're not inheriting it from the past. We've got to take care of this old girl because we only get one of her.
And the fact is, I think sometimes, and this is overlooked at moments, but human intervention can have a positive impact, and maybe because of human intervention in the past, or human caused changes to the environment, such as a lack of natural wildfire being able to clean and clear a forest when humans are living there. So obviously we've got to change that around. So human intervention is necessary to create that new balance that humans and the forest can live happily with. And I think fire is a neat thing in nature naturally. So
cleansing fire. Yeah, I think that is an interesting conversation. Like you look at these rivers out west, a lot of them, maybe not. Yeah, like the Colorado River. It's got all sorts of dams on it. Helps control flooding. That's a good thing. Generates electricity. That's a good thing. Probably displaced a lot of people, and definitely it's a balance. That's this time of year I get real big on balance, and it is a balance. It's a balancing act. What's important to you, what's important to the environment, and at what point is it worth doing something for humanity if it hurts one species?
It's a curious thing, man. It's a curious thing. But when those retaining areas for the dams out west, when they go a little bit dry, guess what you find at the bottom? Remnants of a time before. Not caribou. There's no caribou out there. Come on. Although
Ice Age, maybe.
I don't think the Hoover Dam was built during the Ice Age.
Do you think there were caribou around where the Hoover Dam is during the Ice Age?
I'm skeptical. Well, I have no idea.
I don't know either.
That's a future episode of the Joel and Aaron Show that we shall explore down the road. But on this, we continue our topics and discussion. Aaron, do you like snow?
Yes and no. Double-edged. Boy, yeah. I sometimes I do.
Threw you for a loop there, didn't I? You didn't know I was going there.
Sometimes I like snow. Sometimes I don't like snow. Today, my students were outside taking care of the chickens at school, and they all brought in balls of snow, and I was like, "What are you doing? I don't want snow in my classroom." So I took one of them from a kid and threw it away.
Mr.
And then of course, anytime you do something like that, well, why didn't you throw his ball of snow? I'm like, because
Mr. Miller hates fun. He hates
he's on the
fun.
other side of the classroom, and you've got a ball of snow right here, and I don't want you to have snow in my class. You heathens, what are you doing?
All right, 17-year-old people, put all your snowballs in the trash can. I'm going to pass it around. Or eat it. Eat the snowball right now.
Like on A Christmas Story when the Good morning, Mischief.
I love when she opens up the drawer and like there's the chattering teeth and like a couple other things that are moving in there. And I have found, the more I wonder, I'm like, what's powering the teeth? Is there some sort of...
That's a good question, because perpetual motion wasn't around back in that time period either.
Or maybe the child invented it in the classroom there and didn't know how else to display it. And guess what? He was punished for creating perpetual motion. It's been squelched by teachers like you.
We've lost technologies in the past. I don't think we could build the pyramids right now. Maybe
we could build the pyramids right now, no problem. Would anybody want to do it? Nah.
There's one in there's a rock formation in South America.
Is it the like the lines thing or whatever?
Yeah.
They're like visible from space only?
Maybe. Let me
all right. Great details. Just kidding. No, I like snow as well. I used to like it a lot more, I think, and my childhood wonder has been replaced by adult responsibility, I guess, and it saddens me. So I'm looking for ways to rekindle my love of snow and winter and the outdoors, and I got to tell you, this snowmobiling trip I went on last year as a quick last-minute replacement, yeah, and it was that really helped, and I'm looking forward to viewing the snowfall anew this year with again that childlike wonder. I don't know how to describe it, but
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. How do I?
Thank you for those of you tuning in right now to the Joel and Aaron show. I'm Joel. That's Aaron. We're doing an IT talk right now. So Aaron's getting ready to tell us all about how to operate computers. And
take a look at that.
There we go. That's pretty impressive, Aaron.
Sacsayhuaman.
All right, I have the screen locked on you now, Aaron.
All right, so look at this. These are massive chunks of stone, and look how finely cut those are.
Yeah, I had never seen this before. Where is this at?
This is in South America, Sacsayhuaman. I mean, like, it boggles my mind. Let's see.
There's a cool YouTube video of a dude. His pastime is moving big objects with no tools at all, like other than.
I've seen that. I thought about I've got some big foundation stones that I need to move at my house. I thought about doing that. I'm just not that initiated. I don't have that much initiative, maybe. But look at these things, man. Like, I do not think we could do this now. Those are massive, odd-sized blocks of stone.
I think
cut to fit perfection.
I think we could, but I think it'd take a lot more effort and planning and all that good stuff than it did at that time. I think this was probably it took some work, obviously. I don't know how they did it, but like
back in those times, those people it was obviously cutting massive pieces of stone was a lot bigger part of their lives back then, I suppose. But
Right. I don't remember that class in middle school, but
massive stone block cutting.
if they had that class if they had that class at Ohio State, I would have taken it. Massive stone block cutting.
I've said that before about teaching. There ought to be a class where you can just send kids to bust up cinder blocks. Put them
I don't
to
think
work.
we can do that anymore.
No. Well, no.
Man, you get some phone calls, wouldn't you? Some teachers, some parents might give you an earful about that.
Parents always know best.
Yes. Well, speaking of which, any classes at Ohio State you wish you had taken? Maybe real classes, unlike stone block cutting. Well, might be a real class. I don't know.
No, stone block cutting would be the one for me.
Very good.
No, I would. Yeah, lots. I wish I had taken more history class. I wish I'd have taken all my classes more seriously than I did.
Right. My buddy took a biology class that was all about bird identification.
Do you know what that's called? Do you know what
cool.
Do you know what the science of bird identification is?
Is it ornithology?
Yeah, ornithology.
I got you.
I don't.
There's a guy at church in front of me. He's got a great beard. His name's Blake. He's an ornithologist, professional.
Scientific study of birds. Yes. I wasn't trying to one up you there or anything like that.
Can't ever get up one of me, and
I guess I was, but good naturedly. I guess.
You thought you had one.
I did,
man. Not today.
I'd have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
So, okay, a quick story about old ornithologist guy. One day on his way back from church, I used to live right down the road from him, and he was coming up right behind me, well, pretty close behind me. I pulled into my drive, and he kind of pulls in right behind me, and there's this, what looks to be like a mourning dove dead in the driveway. It was about this weather outside, kind of a coating of snow, just a light dusting. And we go, and he kind of jumps out, and he goes and picks it up. He says, yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, what? And he comes over. It's like a gray bird, but it's got one of those, I don't know what you would call it, I guess.
Beak?
Yes, it has a beak, but one of those things on top of the beak. I was hoping that you would have one up on me there, but
a thing on top, like a plume,
almost like a comb, like a comb, but like on a chicken. But it wasn't. It was more on top of the beak, but it was like a pigeon with that. And he said that was not. This is not a fairly common bird for this area. And so he took it back. I don't know, his collection. I don't know, but I just thought that was super interesting.
Do you remember what kind of bird it was?
I would have brought it up by now, I think. Right. I don't remember.
I'm
trying to remember.
It was on.
We got to look it up here.
It was on top of the beak. Was it on top of the beak, or was it on top of his head?
The beak, definitely the beak.
You're sure it wasn't a tufted titmouse?
It was not. It was bigger than a titmouse. It was like a pigeon size. Like this. Like you can see them right here, too? Like that.
Was it a bird of prey?
No, definitely not. Pigeon-sized gray bird. Where's the Audubon Society when you need them?
You're sure it wasn't a bird of prey?
That's absolutely sure, my friend. Absolutely.
That is a very big.
It was a pigeon size. All right. Okay, maybe smaller then. All right, like that, but with tail a little bit. Maybe that size, but with a tail.
Was it a grouse?
No. It was not a common bird for this area. With red on top of beak. Okay, here we go. Nope.
Was it red, black, and white?
It was more, I'm telling you, it was like a pigeon with a thing on top of its beak. Here, I'm going to look at pigeon with red.
Was it a rose-breasted grosbeak?
That sounds. Oh. Grosbeak?
I don't know how to say it.
No. You're going the wrong direction here. Looking for more like a dove or a pigeon, but with just a little bit of stuff on top of it. Pigeon with red. Sorry to our viewers and listeners right now. You have to endure this, but this is important. I think it's important. Aaron, you can talk about something else if you want.
I'm gonna give this 2 minutes, and then we're gonna
move on if we can't find this, but we're gonna find it. Oh no, so close. That was close. Any ornithologists watching right now, comment below and
feel free to chime in. Was it this, Joel?
Oh yeah, I got you. What? Pull it up.
Was it that?
No.
Was it
Unfortunately not. No. We may have to come back to this. Nope.
This one?
That's it. That's it.
It was a chicken. Turns out red jungle fowl are not common to Ohio.
It was a rooster the whole time. All right.
They came to snuff the rooster. Sorry, folks.
All right, we'll come back to this.
Please, if you know anything about red, crested, combed, pigeon-sized, non-common Ohio birds, leave it in the comments.
I'm gonna like call up this dude tonight, and
I would. Let's bring that back up next time because I'm interested.
All right. Also, this guy would be Dr. Mathis is his name, and very interesting guy. Lovely guy. Great family. Great family. He's a great guy. He used to look quite heavily into Sasquatch in Ohio, but from a scientific perspective. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Now you should look at some of his research stuff. There's no conclusions, obviously, and
I don't like to dismiss stuff like that out of hand. So I'm not gonna say Sasquatch isn't real. I don't think so.
I am told my screen is still locked on stones being built. Thank you, Troy Hall, for tuning in. But I don't think it is, Aaron. Troy,
appreciate you, buddy. I don't. I'm just.
But you're wrong. No,
I've got Joel here. Let me.
Let's pull up our little. Oh, I got me. Troy, you're wrong.
I've got.
Do you have the stones?
I did. I had it up and it was on a delay. So I had it up and it was on a delay.
It was doing weird things to you.
I had it up and it was on a delay.
All right, it's fixed now. We're told it's fixed.
Troy, good on you. Good on you, mate.
Yeah. That was not. Shoot, yah's not Australian. That's like Norwegian.
Good on you, buddy.
Let's go, Wendy. There'll be 4 of us dining in the automobile this evening.
Good evening, Wendy.
Like 4 biggie burgers, 4 large fries. Hold on.
Here comes Steve and Harry. That'll be 6. What? That
biggie burgers and 6 burgie fries.
Josh Norwood, if you're watching this, that's all you. Thank you. That was
man.
That was a very enjoyable point of my life about a year ago. Was the Crocodile Dundee Wendy's. If you haven't seen it, worth the watch.
Put that up right. That, and then the TED Talk about the caribou.
Yes, pens
in those. Put those on the tables. You're gonna have 2 tables with 2 pins. Put it in it.
Hold on. Here comes Steve And Harry,
and Nigel.
that'll be,
I don't
that'll
know.
be 4 tables and 4 things to put pens in.
That's not a knife.
Oh, classic.
Dude. Very good. I don't know what's so special about Crocodile Dundee, other than maybe it's just so wonderful and just genuine. And
Yeah, it's kind of the Australian Andy Griffith, I'd say.
all right, I see it. A little instead of whistling, just go crocodile hunting. You know,
Tangential Andy Griffith.
Good show.
Connected by a gossamer thread of simplicity.
Ooh, I like the Andy Griffith Show. It reminds you of a different time that some would say never existed, but in
Was
our
it a better
brains.
time? Was the Andy Griffith era a better time? What do you think? Well, let's say the 1950s, or the 1950s. I guess Andy Griffith, late 50s, early 60s. Was that a better time than it is right now?
You know, I mean, I'm having a pretty good time in life right now.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. The late 50s, early 60s were not a better time than they are now. I'm gonna take.
You know what? I agree with you. You know why? Because guess what? I think there was more turmoil in the world at that time. I think I'm not saying the world's perfect. We're not perfect. You know, we got a lot of problems, but
I think we've come a long ways since then. Now, was it simpler? Probably. I think there were some aspects that were definitely better then than they are now. But you know, time builds on itself, Joel. We've got a lot better things now than we had back then. Better material things. I think what some would consider morals are less than they were then. I would take personally, with the libertarian ideology that I espouse, I would take the increase in technology with the decline in morals over that time. I hate saying that. I feel like I'm letting my grandparents down, but
well, you know, the current time is the best time, right? So there was a quote I heard earlier today in one of those John Wooden videos I was talking about. And it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think I said his name right.
Yeah.
Difficult name. And he was talking about how, you know, he got up and did a speech about remembering John Wooden and all those good things. He was a basketball coach for all of you people out there. And some say the greatest basketball coach, and maybe the greatest coach of all time.
Joel, can I ask you a question real fast? Is this
Yes.
going to be long? Is this going to be long enough that I can go brew another cup of coffee?
I can make it long enough, but I think you'll like this next quote, and I'll tell you about it.
I'm gonna
continue on. Continue on. I will keep talking so they don't know you're gone. Aaron's still there, right? Yes, sure. Oh, as his voice, some reason, gets distant. But anyways, so Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was talking about John Wooden, remembering him, and he got up there and he's looking a little bit more gray than I guess we remember one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And he's saying, yes, I know, time does seem to take away. But he says if he's learned anything, time also gives us many things. Along with it taking away, it gives us plenty. And I thought that was an interesting take on it. You know, we think of time being a thief in the night that takes away things and is an awful thing, but it also gives us things. It gives us experiences. It gives us friendships. It gives us wonderful Joel and Aaron show episodes like this one, and gives us coffee.
Andy Griffith.
Exactly. Now, when you were talking about simplicity, you know, and things like that, whose option? I think this world maybe is naturally a little bit more complex, but maybe it's just because we make it that way, you know? We don't need to be on social media. We don't need to be doing the Joel and Aaron show. We could just go fishing and be a police officer if we really wanted to be. We don't need to be on all those things.
Took me a second to realize where you were going with that. Neil
Andy
deGrasse.
Griffin.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Or is it Neil deGrasse? No, it's not. It's not. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson.
NDGT. Okay. I heard a good quote from him. The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. And I love
How true.
that.
How true.
I love that. We strive so hard to understand the universe. We might not know. I mean, it might all be an illusion. And we might, we live in three-dimensional space, but who's to say that there's not more going on than that?
Aaron, may I share something with you here?
Yes.
It's as we're talking about quotes. This is one I got today. I even printed it off today. It's John Wooden's definition of success. I'm on a John Wooden kick today.
So I see that.
Yes. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do your best to become the best that you are capable of becoming. So pretty much, success is just knowing you did your best. And I think that's kind of, we want to raise up success to this wonderful thing of materialistic things, and it's really just within ourselves. Am I successful? Who cares what other people think? What do I think?
Yeah, I guess you could tie that to Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. I don't know if I'm taking that out of context or not, but that's probably. But I
gotta say, I don't know the context either, Aaron.
I don't know, but I do like that. That's. Wouldn't it be sad if that to thine own self be true that I like kind of try to live my life by was just like to thine own self be true. To thine own self be true, especially if you're an evil, foul-hearted person. I've been literally living a lie.
To thine own self be truly evil to other people. What? Oh my gosh. Now,
I'm going to go fetch my
Here's
coffee.
one.
I'm listening.
All right. Continue on. But here's one. Robert Frost, the poem, the path less traveled by and all those good things.
My mother
it's a sarcastic poem. What's he saying? What did you say? He's getting coffee. This is my office. I just did rearrangement. I don't know if I like where the bookcase is here, but I got to have the books in the office or else it doesn't. I mean, where else the book's supposed to go? They're supposed to be in an office. All right, welcome back.
Hi, everybody. I'm on a huge coffee kick right now. That's like 8 cups today. Life's good. My mother and I have had conversations about that Robert Frost poem. We've said, well, what if he's just walking? What if there is
and then he gets lost?
Yeah, and that has made all the difference.
Mm-hmm. But seriously, the poem, if you look into it, like it means something actually totally different than what you just read on surface because you read through it really quickly. There's like a phrase in there that changes it around if you really read it like it's supposed to be written. So, written.
Well, and I think I think that is kind of like movies today. You watch a movie more than once, you might have a different understanding of it.
Absolutely. Like I just watched maybe one of the greatest movies of all time, and The Santa Claus, and so deep that movie. And just kidding. I mean, it's a good Christmas movie, but
I watched a movie this past week. Maybe one of the I won't say more overrated movies because I don't think that many people rate it at all. But The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, definitely not made in the modern school of movie directing. There's a lot of stuff that, like, I feel like modern movies, they spoon feed you a lot of stuff. There's a lot of like exposition that goes on, like explicit exposition of plot points. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, they're like, hope you're paying attention, bud, because you missed that, you're lost.
Yes. So I'm looking up the meaning of this poem. All right. The poem is praised.
Joel, you're cutting out, kind of.
Now.
Not really.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are. Hi, Joel.
I was on a different page. Maybe that was part of it.
Probably.
All right. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Your video is lacking, but that's okay. So
that's all right. So the poem is praised as an ode of individuality, to not follow the pack, even though the path may be more difficult. But really, the roads are pretty much the same. It's just, but the poem means when you look back at it later in life, you will have said this made all the difference. When in reality, it's just almost like confirmation bias. You see what I'm saying? It's really a poem about people looking back on life and misjudging it because they've been through it. You know, it's sort of weird, but I like it the old way better.
Yeah. Well, which is also interesting. Would you rather lead a life that you are less educated but more content with the way things are?
Yeah. There you go.
Let me put it to you like this. So there are people, and again, not dogging on anybody, there's people that go through life and might never know the names of the trees, or might never know the names of the birds, or might never know why you breathe and why your lungs just work and why you don't have to think about using your lungs. Or there's people that might go through life and just think, oh, the air that I'm breathing is oxygen. I'm breathing oxygen. Well, okay, you're breathing oxygen and nitrogen. You know, would you rather have a more simplistic worldview and be happier, or would you rather question everything and always feel lacking, I guess? Lacking in knowledge and the desiring more knowledge. I don't know how to frame that question. Maybe more of a discussion than an explicit lay it out there for you question.
Well, go back to the poem there. It's praised as an ode of individuality, that I took the one less traveled by, and it's made all the difference. When really, if you look at all the words in there, it says there is no difference. But it's only later in life, the narrator recounts that moment, and then he says he took the road less traveled. But that's what the poem is about. And so I look back and go, did I really take the one less traveled by? What if I took one that was even less traveled by? What would happen? Like you're mentioning there. What if I opted away from a college education or something like that and just said, I just want to go work an industrial job and be happy with my life and something like that? Or am I there right now? I mean, what if I took the road more traveled by?
Are there only two roads?
What about the third road? Nobody talks about the third road.
Yeah. No, nobody talks about busting through the brush. Nobody talks about if you think about it, the road less traveled by might not be a road at all, Joel. the road, the road least traveled by. Maybe that's where the money maker's at. Maybe that's pointing straight at that end goal and walking right towards it.
Which road do the caribou take? Which road is the pyramid
that's
on?
easy. That's easy. The one closest to Lake Ontario. At its low water mark.
So we have concluded here that the paths are all close to Lake Ontario. At least one of them is, right? So that means they'd have to come back to some place in the Americas.
My guess, are we looking at this strictly from a in the world caribou thing, or are we looking at this intellectually speaking?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, my guess is there's going to be a food source on one side of Lake Ontario where these caribou are all at, and then that was the shortest point between food and where those caribou wanted to be at, and those dudes put up those rocks, and they said, this right here, we got two places that these caribou want to be at. We're going to sit right here in the middle, and we're going to use our atlatls. We're gonna give people some rocks. We're gonna give people some bows and arrows, and we're gonna get all sorts of caribou.
And they said, let's not take the path less traveled by. Let's sit beside the path more traveled by. That'll be our path. We'll watch the path.
And that has made all the difference.
For those guys, it did. And then it flooded. So
imagine being the person who was there first, prior to these boulder ground blinds, prior to going down to, Neolithic Cabela's and buying your rocks to set up along the path. Imagine being the guy that was just out there first time, had maybe a spear, perhaps a primitive bow and arrow, just sitting beside like a tree, like, oh, hey, I got a caribou there. And then eventually that turns out to be the spot. They're like, hey.
Well, and then he blabs about it too much at the Neolithic coffee shop.
Yes.
And then the other guys are like, hey,
let's
Jim Bob over here.
Let's exploit this like an ATM that gives out $100 bills.
And add in a couple more chapters, and then you have the War of the Ohio Valley, and so War of 1812, and all those good things.
Yeah.
In the Northwest Territory. What?
Yes, sir.
That took a path. And then other Great Lakes, wonderful history. Well, I think we've been talking for about 2 hours here. No, about an hour and 10 minutes.
Hour and 10 minutes. So close. I mean, you're close. I don't know what that.
Any other good topics you would like to bring up?
Yes, here? I would. Because talking about roads less traveled by, this evening, I was able to harvest my 5th deer. We talked about that. Thank you. Maybe thank you. With all due respect, to do it for me. Put meat in my freezer. I appreciate the confirmation, but it's an intrinsic thing. So, but thank you. I appreciate it. Dragging it out, I did unintentionally take the road less traveled by because I not really aware of where all these paths are at down there. So I dragged that deer through the brush and through the brambles to get back to the main path.
How long was it?
It was how long did I?
What happened there? Were you like, you were still dreaming about the moment, weren't you? Like how good it feels to be the great hunter, the great white hunter.
How far of a shot was it? How far did I drag it? How?
Both of those.
Okay. How about I just tell you all of
them? Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Tell me about the deer.
Okay.
How'd you get it?
So left school today, went down to this property that I hunt again. Thank you, Mike and Shauna, great people. Very very generous, and I do
Mike and
appreciate it.
Shauna. Woo! Joel and Aaron show members for life.
Yes,
You'll get a t-shirt.
good on you.
Good on you, mate. Oh,
So got down there about 3-ish. Walking into the woods, I had a bait pile up, and there was a deer bedded up right beside of it. And I figured there would be, because when it's cold like this, those deer are going to be close to the food source. So I jumped this deer up and didn't go far, bedded down like 100 yards from my tree that I was in. So I climbed up. This deer's bedded down like not a care in the world. And I'm looking at it. Well, first off, it stopped like 50 yards from my tree, but it was through the brush, and I couldn't take that shot. So I sat there for a little bit, and this deer's bedded down 100 yards from my tree. I'm like, man, I've got an antlerless tag, not an antlerless tag, because that's a different. I've got an either sex tag, and I'm okay with harvesting an antlerless deer here. So I'm looking at this deer for like half an hour, and as I've got snow blowing in my face, snow's blowing in my face. I know I've got the wind. I'm like, I'm gonna get down and stalk this deer. So I lower my gun. I climb down, and I like peek out from behind this tree and see that the deer's not looking at me, so he didn't see me climb down. I'm like, all right. And the hunt was on. So I'm creeping, which I'm good at. I'm creeping real slow, trying not to make a lot of noise.
creeping.
I invented the creep. So I'm trying to keep big trees between this deer and myself. But then I get up to this point where I've just got like brambles between the deer and myself, and I can't go closer because I'm gonna start crunching stuff. I'm gonna have stuff that's gonna start making noise. And I'm looking at this deer. I'm like, you know what? That's not a huge deer. But I'm like, I need to make something happen. Okay, I'm either gonna kill this deer. If I get a shot, I'm gonna kill this deer. If I don't, I want it to happen so I can get back up and get some hunting in this evening. So I just start zigzagging. I read that in I think Hatchet, the book Hatchet, or one
Gary
of those.
Paulson.
Very good book. Very good book. One of that sort of book. So I'm like, that's always been kind of a way, like, hunt rabbits or something. Don't walk straight at them. Gain a little bit, gain a little bit, gain a little bit, gain a little bit. So I'm doing that, and this deer finally gets up. I'm like 80 yards from this deer, and it gets up and runs, stops about 90 yards in a clearing, kind of quartering away from me. But I'm up against a tree. I'm leaning on an ash tree, and I'm like, this is the money shot right here. So I'm leaning on this ash tree. I got a CVA Hunter 44 Magnum, most powerful handgun in the world. Blow your head clean off. So I'm leaning on this tree, thumb back the hammer. So I brought the gun up, put my finger on the trigger, took a deep breath to steady my nerves.
Take a deep breath to steady your nerves.
And just squeeze the trigger. And I tell you what, dropped that deer in its tracks. Now, not a giant deer, hit it a little high at the top of the lungs. Dropped it, just stone dead. That's the first deer I've killed with a gun since I was probably in high school, probably before high school. Deers that I've killed with a gun during gun season. Now I say that and everybody's like, "Oh, poacher." No, I've shot some deer on kill permits for some people, since high school. But that's the first deer that I've killed gun hunting during gun season since high school. and it was awesome. I tell you what, man, that 44 Magnum really just, I mean, it went clear through the animal. I, I don't want to I don't want to misquote the ammunition that I'm using, but a good semi-jacketed hollow point 44 Magnum bullet. Dropped it in its tracks. I shot and the deer went straight down, like I hit it with a 300 Win Mag.
Did you bring me this buck, Uncle Alphonse?
Take me, Rimnar.
Take me now.
Ah!
Good story. By the way, we are quoting Escanaba into Moonlight, which is a great American classic of the cinema.
Hello.
Hello. Pasties? You bring the pasties?
Pasties? Dude. Pasties. Such a very good. I would like to see it on stage because it is a play.
Right. I think it originated right as a play.
I think it did. I would be interested in seeing it as in the theater.
Very good. Well, maybe that's one of those movies we should like have playing, and then you and I do some commentary.
I would be okay with that. I think that I would like to do The Last of the Mohicans because it's been a long time since I've seen The Last of the Mohicans. Whereas I watched Escanaba into Moonlight yesterday.
Hey. Very good. Very good. Hey, we got one thing before we check out here. Nick Poling says, can we hear about the time the wind was swirling?
Okay. Yes, we can. So that was so when I was in high school, I filmed and by the way, Nick Poling, thank you for subscribing. You subscribe to this stuff, you can ask us all sorts of questions and we'll answer. Trying to build our viewer base. But yes, Nick Poling, this one is for you, my friend. So I was in Aho. I was in high school filming with a group called Dawn to Dusk Outdoors was our group that we filmed with. Had my camera set up, and I was kind of new to all this, so I'd seen people make hunting videos before, so I was trying to do that. But I want to say this was the first deer that I got on film. So I'm gonna give you the long story just so we've got it. So I had this. I think it was a yearling doe come in front of me. I got my camera on it. I bleed at her to stop her. She's walking. I don't know if this is this the left side for you all too? Is this the left? Is this your left? Is this the right?
No, that's the right.
So this is okay.
I think.
So I've got this.
Yes.
I've got this deer coming left to right in front of me. Bleed at her. I think she stops. I'm at full draw. I think she stops. Again, the third time we've brought up tunnel vision in this. But I think she stops. I've got a brown spot picked out. I send it. Okay. But that spot that I've been focusing on is now 8 inches to the right. Okay. Because the deer was walking. She didn't stop. So I end up hitting about 6 inches behind the heart. I might have got the liver. I don't think so. So this deer goes and she ends up in the cornfield. I give her some time. I look at the video. I'm like, man, that's not a good shot at all because she was moving. I hit her way far back. So I get down. I'm up there for like 2 more hours. Want to give the deer time to expire. I'm walking out of the woods, and I just happened to look back. I was hunting along the edge of a cornfield. I just happened to look back, and I see this deer looking at me through the corn. I've got a hole, maybe that big, 20 yards. So I just walk. As I'm walking, I draw my bow back. I stop. I've got this hole. send it. The deer's not moving at that point. It ended up being the same deer, which, you know, as a high school kid, I was a high school kid, but I was very fortunate it ended up being that. But so Nick and Nick's cousin Cody, another good friend of mine from back home, they came out to help me track this deer. And a couple good quotes from that. Cody says, "Well, why don't you just follow the river of blood? Because the second shot, I blew the heart out of that deer. I mean, center punched it." We get up there, and so we did a little film work there at the end, like me with the deer, like America.
Keeping it real.
What's that? Yeah,
keeping it real with Willie and Billy.
Yeah. So I'm like talking about this deer, and I'm like, you know, and I was excited. I get excited about deer hunting. I think the day that I don't get excited about it's the day I'll quit doing it. But I was talking it up with Cody. I was like, oh man, that wind was whirling. It was blowing everywhere. Glad I had my cover sent on so that deer couldn't smell me. Well, then we decided to put Cody behind the deer, and Cody's acted like me behind the deer, and he's like, it's a parody on what I had just been doing. The
wind was whirling.
It
was the best of times, the worst of times.
More comedic value, I think, than that. It was more lighthearted. Got out here today, had a big deer walk by, and well, I tell you what, that wind was a whirling, and it was.
We're out here on somebody's property, and we got a monster out here. The old 30-06.
It was good though. I'll if I find that video, which I won't because I'm not going to look for it. But if I ever come across that video, I will.
Great
I will
effort.
let you.
Great. All right. Very good. Well, I think we could review that video.
We could. I do have all of those in my closet upstairs. Review old high 8 video footage of me deer hunting in high school. That would be.
I know a service that can convert those to digital.
Oh yeah. What we should talk about that, Joel.
We should have fun with that. All right, we'll talk about that. But thanks for tuning in to the Joel and Aaron Show, episode 3. We like to say it's weekly, but life gets in the way sometimes. So who knows?
It is put together weekly.
In our brains, and well, we talk with each other weekly, so it's put together weekly because it's life. It's about our life.
Maybe it's not spelled the same, but it is definitely put together weekly.
We thank you, viewers, for tuning in to the path less traveled by, and the road less taken. The road not taken.
Why don't we call it that? The path least traveled by. That would be a good name for a podcast.
Well, what if we get a lot of viewers or something someday? Then really, like the path ishy traveled by. Maybe not less or least, but middle.
Well, it's a traveled by path, but could be traveled on more. We'd take those Patreon dollars.
There you go. We need to set up an account. I'd just be like Terry Penorwood, $1. Oh, we owe you $1? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. And I'm Joel. Aaron, any last words here?
Hey, tell you what. Find what makes your clock tick and then do that. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. And so for Aaron, I'm Joel. This has been the Joel and Aaron Show. And as the Australians would say, Aaron,
good on ya.